Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our weekly Fast Track Friday Hangout with Autodesk. I'm Wayne Griffinberg. I'm here with Matt Nichols today. He's going to give us a deep dive in API programming. Matt, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Hey everybody.
Awesome, Matt. It's always great to have you with us and show off some of the awesome stuff that you do every day inside of Fusion and HSM. Awesome, guys. So welcome with us this week. I want to just to make sure that you guys know that we like to have this more of a talk, a discussion with you guys, more of like a training session, if you will, than any kind of webinar where we're just talking at you. So anytime you guys have questions, we saw that Sebastian has already started asking some great questions of our team. So please feel free. Use the questions panel inside of the GoToWebinar screen to ask us some questions. And while we have Matt here, pick his brain. He's got tons of information about machining and programming and API programming. This is a great opportunity. We also have Al Watmu, who's our product manager, and also CJ Abraham, who's also a product manager, on with us to be able to answer those questions for you guys as well. And also, you guys that are here with us today, stick around, because at the end of the webinar, we're going to extend past a little bit. We're going to stop recording, so only you guys who are here with us live can hear some sneak previews of what's coming in development. I know Al wants to show some cool post-processor stuff that our team's working on, and CJ is going to really get into some probing inside of HSM Works. So guys, stick around afterwards to get some of those sneak previews of what's in development. And again, anytime during the webinar, please feel free. Ask questions. We can ask those questions live as Matt is walking through his demonstration of API programming. So anytime, bug us, ask a question, we'll get an answer for you. So before we start jumping in, I want to ask a couple of questions of our audience really quick. We like to take some polls to find out how we're doing when it comes to our development and getting that content out there for you guys to learn and work with our integrated CAD and CAM systems. So the first question I want to ask real quick is, what's most likely going to drive your growth in the future? So as you start working with our interfaces, is it really 2- and 3-axis milling that you guys are looking to learn more and grow into? Turning, mill turning, if you're looking for positional and indexing in 4th and 5th axis indexing, 3+1 or even 3+2, or is it going to be a true 4 or 5 axis that's really going to help you guys expand and grow your business in our industry? Also, we have a lot of users who do a lot of plasma on sheet metal if they're doing water jets and working on lasers. And this month we just released our sheet metal interface, so we have a lot of users using that interface inside of Fusion, that workspace, and creating their parts using their water jets and laser machines. So it looks like we have a good amount of you that voted. So let me close out these polls. Thanks, guys, for letting us know where you guys can grow. I'm going to share that real quick. So it looks like we have a good 40% of users out there looking to do more in true 4th and 5th axis. And this is a place where you guys can see that you're going to grow your business. And it's great for us to know that and see that feedback, to know where our developers can spend some time in our product to make sure we're able to support those true 4th and 5th axis, as well as get content for you guys when we do these webinars, training at Autodesk University, creating classes and going forward with content that can help you guys grow in that field. So thanks for voting. It's good to know and get this feedback from you guys. Also, as I had mentioned, we do every year have Autodesk University. And this is a great opportunity to get to learn, to network, and get to know a lot of our elite users, our developers. People like Al and CJ will be there this year. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I just want to get an idea of people who has already been to AU. And if there's any of you out there who want to get out to AU or learn more about it, we can get information out to you following the webinar. So we appreciate your taking time to vote and let us know your experience with Autodesk University. And again, it's a great opportunity to get out and learn about our integrated CAD/CAM solutions, what's going on at Autodesk, what's the future look like, and what are developers as well as elite users doing, and how are they using our interfaces. So I'm going to close out this poll. Thanks, guys. Looks like the majority had voted. And let me share this. Excuse me. So it looks like we do have about split. We have 36% who have actually been to Autodesk University and they loved it, and 36% are going to be working, making chips fly, expanding your business while Autodesk University is going on. That's awesome, and you can follow up afterwards to find out, but you won't get that true hands-on, but that's okay. You guys are doing good using our solutions and making chips. So thanks for voting. It's good to know, good to get this feedback, to know who's been with us at Autodesk University, and those of you who are interested in attending in the future. Okay, so we talked about Autodesk University. Let me give you a little bit more of a background on what's going on this year. We have some classes that we're providing, and the past few years have been very heavy with CAM support and keynote speakers, as well as hands-on classes. This year we have specific tracks built up by our users. Many of you have voted for these classes. We have initially our product innovation platform. It's happening on the 14th. It'll take you all the way through that concept, taking that design sketch that you have on a napkin sketch, bringing it into development into Fusion, being able to design a PC board, and walking all the way through that design process, all the way through to 3D printing and machining out the enclosure. So you go through that hands-on process of actually developing a product, making it, and going home with an actual product that you designed and developed. So amazing teachers are going to be there to teach you all along the way to be able to do this. We also have a full track CAM classes. Our expert elites will be there. Our Autodesk experts. The amazing people we see on Instagram every day are going to be there teaching you how to be able to manufacture, be able to do multi-axis, and create and work with post-processors, and take you all the way through those CAM classes. So it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience to be able to join them there. And also to be able to network with those guys, get to know them, and be part of that community. And then we have our CAM certification class on the 16th that you can go all the way through the fundamentals with our power users and elite users, and getting out a certificate at the end. And just to give you a snapshot, a sneak preview of what it will look like when you guys are designing and developing through that product innovation platform, and taking those classes to learn our integration with Eagle to be able to create those PCBs and be able to make an enclosure 3D printed or even machined out, learning how the hands-on how to do that. This is that certificate series we talked about. Some of these names I'm sure you have seen in Instagram or even in the community. CJ is going to be there. He's with us today. Angelo, he's at Pier 9. CJ and both Angelo are at Pier 9, working with our teams, our development teams, as well as teaching people how to use our tools effectively and showing off what we can do in our software. Kevin and Ellingson and Kevin Lee will be taking you through turning and 2D, as well as Derek Goodman at Selway to get you guys some fundamentals. So and at the end you get certified in being able to work with our software, be able to run your machines, and going forward you'll have that those networked people that you're working with as well. So it's a great opportunity, some great speakers, people you know, Rob Awesome Lockwood, and the awesome is implied if you ever seen any of his work or follow him on Instagram. Rob's awesome. John Saunders, you know him. He's got the YouTube channel that he's got so many classes, and he does such great work every day. You can see it on his YouTube channel. Seth Mador, one of our Power Elite users. You see him in our forums, as well as Lawrence. In our forums, as well as creating classes. These guys all are developing, and they're going to teach classes at AU. Amish, you can see him at SS CAD Cam on his YouTube channel. Al's with us today, our product manager. He's everything CAM. He's awesome. Renee, he's our software architect for development. Marty Deans and Tim Paul, both great machinists, and they're all on our adoption team to teach people how to use our software effectively. Have a great channel on our website to be able to get started using our integrated CAD CAM, as well as Lars Christensen. You see him every day in YouTube as well as Instagram doing his tips of the day. If you don't follow Lars or even Tim or Al or any of these guys, you should. You really should get out and see what they're doing every day with the software. Okay. With that, I want to get, and those guys will all be teaching classes and doing keynotes at our Autodesk University this year. So Matt, without further ado, I'm excited to see what you're going to do today. You're going to take us through some API programming. I know a lot of our users have been excited to see exactly how to go in and make some automation programs. So, Matt, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me, I need you to make me presenter real quick, Wayne.
Yep, I'm getting over there. Sorry, Matt. It's actually a little freezing on me here. Here we go. Yep, I got you. Right now, you're the presenter. Now you can be able to take this.
Awesome. Cool. So happy Friday, everybody. So first I want to start off with just, I guess, talking about what we're going to do agenda-wise, and then we'll kind of get into it. So first I want to just kind of look at what is API, talk about the difference between scripts or add-ins, and then look at the different languages, which are only 2 right now, that we can do scripts and add-ins in Fusion with, and then we'll get into actually creating a script in Python using the Spider editor. So what is API? So API is Application Program Interface, a set of clearly defined methods of communication between various software components. So in general, the ability to access commands and features through a programming language. I'm going to actually do this one first. Okay, so script versus add-in. A script runs once and then is stopped. And then there's no association to a toolbar. It's associated with workspace, but not a toolbar. An add-in, however, only stops if you tell it to stop running. So it's constantly running in the background. It can be associated to a toolbar or a tool panel with UI customization, as you can see in the picture. So you do have the ability in an add-in to assign it to a certain panel and then basically promote it to that main view right here. And you can build custom palettes, and so this is actually something I've been working a lot in lately. There's actually a lot of abilities going through that, and those custom palettes are actually driven through HTML language, so it gives you a lot more flexibility in some cases in how you want to lay out things. Okay, so then next I wanted to look at the functionality that we have in the API. So currently the modeling workspace, probably about 80% of it you can do through API. With patch workspace, maybe like 50 or 60%. And then there's minimal coverage on the mesh workspace. You can do assemblies in the API. And then I believe it was last year we added the CAM ability in API, and we're still building on that as we speak. I can hit preferences with API, some basic data panel, local translators, so whether I'm importing or exporting files, and then I can access certain things through the timeline. So currently in the programming languages, we have access to Python and C++. We did have JavaScript, but a couple releases ago they decided to stop adding JavaScript ability, and so it's kind of on what they call a maintenance mode. So if you've written JavaScript, or if you get JavaScript add-ins or scripts, they still work. They're not adding new abilities to it. So the first one we're going to look at is Python. So with Python, it runs in process in Fusion through its own interpreter. It's like some of the numbers I looked at, it's like 200 times faster than JavaScript. It gives you full access to file system. There's a standard editor that comes with it, Spider, which we'll look at here in a little bit. You can use other Python libraries, which I'll actually show as well. And that one's more for, like if I want to choose a file location to store something, there's a different file library or Python library called tkinter that I use to pull up a file dialog browser. and then it uses asserts for its own errors. So then the other one is C++. So you have your DLL or dylib, depending on what operating system you're using, DLL being Windows and dylib being Mac. It is the fastest of either JavaScript or Python in actual calculating and running it. Again, full access to file system. It defaults to Visual Studio for Windows and Xcode on Mac. It gives better code hints, and it has error codes for its actual errors. And then you have to compile it for each platform, whereas Python you don't. You just have the .py that can operate in both Mac and Windows.
Hey Matt, if I could add in real quick, this is one of the coolest things that I always liked about Fusion, not only when you're designing parts and doing CAM, even when you're writing your scripts or writing your program to automate your processes, you even have some flexibility on the way you write your code. So if you're used to C++ or C#, or if you're used to writing in JavaScript or even Python, you have those options to write exactly the same way, and Fusion will take that code and automate your process. So it's great to have that flexibility. So cool to show that, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so kind of what I wanted to cover, if you ever want to, you can get on and you can actually look at the object model for Fusion. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick because I had one open. But it gives you a full list of kind of all the different areas that you can touch on, and just like the generic name for them whenever you're programming. But so whenever we're looking at the API, you have objects which support methods, properties, and events. And so all of those are going to be the squared off boxes. And then collection objects, which are the rounded nodes, provide access to existing objects and can support creation of new objects. But typically with collection objects, what you're going to do is you can count items, and then you can then gain access to certain items inside of your design. So those are basically what we're going to be working with whenever we're in the API structure. All right. So here's kind of an example of a Python script, and what this is doing. If we step through it, creating a variable. So if you've ever had, if you've ever done JavaScript, it kind of looks different because that's where I kind of came from. I'm still learning Python, but I've actually found it a lot easier than programming in JavaScript. So whenever I'm declaring variables, I'm not having to say var and then give the name of the variable. I'm just able to write what I want it to be, equals, and then go for whatever the definition is.
That makes it easier, Matt. I think if the classes and components are the same, but the syntax is different, I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So it makes it a lot easier, in my opinion. I find it cleaner. But so basically, whenever we're starting this, we want to get the application, and then we want to assign a variable that gets the active product as well. So basically, the design space that we're working in, and then root component. So root component is going to get the active design that we're in, and then coming down the line, I'm wanting to create a sketch on the XY plane. So I'm going to define a variable of sketches, and I'm going to call it the root component, and then call it sketches, which is basically, you can almost look at it as like saying, hey, in Fusion, I'm getting ready to do a sketch, and that's kind of like hitting the sketch button. And then XY plane, I'm pulling up my XY construction plane, and then here's where I actually tell it, create that sketch on the XY plane, and then I'm literally inside of a sketch in the Fusion. And we'll look at this more kind of how it works whenever we get into actually writing the script. So once I'm in the sketch here, I want to then draw a circle. So I'm going to call up circles as a variable, and I'm going to assign it basically the object of sketch circles. And then in doing that, I can tell it in this next one, circle 1 is my variable again, and then I want to basically add a circle to my sketch by center radius. I'm going to tell it 0, 0 point from my origin, and then it's going to be a radius of 2. And then by default, I'll make sure I mention this one, by default, all the measurements are in centimeters. So you can, there are ways of telling it to do all measurements by inches. Can't remember right off the top of my head what that is, but I will show you a resource of where you can find all this information. So once I've done that, I then want to constrain it by adding a dimension inside the sketch. So then I will do sketch dimensions, add diameter dimension, tell it the sketch entity I want to assign it to, and then this actually is where it will put the sketch text, or I'm sorry, the dimension text at this point in your sketch. So this is, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Matt. I was just going to say, I like to equate this to like as if you're cooking and you have the objects on the menu. What Matt's showing you right here is the actual recipe to be able to get those features that you're trying to automate right inside of Fusion that later on you can manipulate or put toolpaths on. So this is the real recipe right in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. So then what I want to do is, so this is an example of the Python, and then just giving a comparison example, here's what it looks like for C++. So I'll just denote right now, I don't know C++. So this is basically copied from the examples out of the website. That's why we're looking at Python for the rest of this time. But this is an example of the same process of creating a circle and creating the dimension through C++. All right, so let's say we wanted to take the sketch where we created the circle and we want to actually extrude it out. So this is taking that same example of creating the circle and then the sketch dimension, but adding the ability to actually extrude it. So all the things that are in red are what are basically the 4 lines that we have to add to that initial script to actually create the extrusion. So you'll see I create the variable extrudes underneath root comp, and so again I'm calling up root comp and then accessing my features, and in that features I can access the extrude command. And so then once I have that, I go down below the actual sketch dimension, and I'm going to create a profile variable that then calls up the open profile from my initial sketch. I create the distance variable to tell it how far I want to extrude, and then I create the extrusion where I tell it the profile, the distance, and then how I want it to actually do the extrusion, whether I want new body, join, intersect, cut. I can even do new component in there as well. And we'll actually look at this here because I mentioned the tool hints earlier, or the code hints, so we'll actually kind of see this in process whenever we get there. Okay. So in kind of running forward with Python, there's 2 primary functions whenever you're creating add-ins and even some of the more advanced scripts. So the main ones that you'll see are run and stop. So run is the function that it does whenever the add-in is actually running. So any kind of input change event handler or actual creation of running the command and then executing it, like an execution handler. So that's all in run, and then stop is basically removing everything out of the actual UI So it's kind of interesting how it works, and we'll kind of look at all that stuff too. And so then functions in Python are started with the keyword of def or def, and so it's defining the function. So you have def, and then your function name, and then any kind of handler that you want it to call. And then everything else will be working in classes. And that will bring us to the end of the PowerPoint. So let's kind of go into Spider and look at how we can do some of this stuff. So first, actually, let's do this. I want to run through and actually create the script so you kind of understand how that works. So if I go into my add-ins panel or my dialog, you have two tabs, the scripts and add-ins. So in here, the green button is if I'm given a script, I can add it to my list through this way. Same thing in your add-ins. So let's just go ahead and create a real quick script. So once I hit create, I come up with this dialog. Now in here I have the ability to define whether I'm doing a script or add-in, and then I can pick my programming language. Now the other thing with this is I can also tell it to save my preference, whichever one I choose in here. So go ahead, Wayne.
Matt, I just want to ask real quick, if you can just give us a background on what the difference is between the scripts and the add-ins.
Yeah, so that was one of the first slides. So whenever I do a script, and this is actually an easy way to show it. Okay, so whenever I run a script, go ahead and hit run on there. It brings up this dialog. Now if I go back into my add-ins, it automatically kills it. So what you don't see is there's no basically circle that's kind of rotating around. If I go to my add-ins, you can see these little circles, or I guess dot in a circular array. That tells me that that's actually running. So with the scripts, you will never see that unless you have one that's failing, and I have had that a few times. Actually, I could probably show you one right here. Oh, wait. Let's go into my model workspace and I'll show you. So if I go ahead and hit run here, I did it. I should have actually come up with an error because I'm not in the CAM workspace. Anyways, so what it would have done is it would put a circle here, and what I would have done is then hit stop, and it would not show it. But typically, the difference between the scripts and the add-in and the script is a one-time run. So anytime you want to run it, you have to hit run. Whereas if I'm in an add-in, it's constantly running until I tell it to stop. So like for example, the Haas Fusion add-in or this tutorials add-in, it's constantly running on the side until I tell it to go away.
And that's a tutorials add-in that Matt wrote too, and it's pretty awesome. And it's something great that he can show during the webinar. So cool.
Yeah, definitely. So this is one of the ones that's the custom palette programmed. But yeah, we'll definitely look at this later, and it's available on the Fusion forum too. So if anybody wants to get it, they can. But anyway, so yeah, so scripts runs once, and anytime you want to run it, you have to hit run. Add-ins constantly run until you tell it to stop. So if we go in here, and let's just go ahead and create this script. I'm going to do Python, and I'm just going to call it webinar. So one thing to remember in here, and if you look at any of the other ones, you cannot have spaces between words in the title. That's one thing, because if you do, it won't work, period. Unless they've changed that, but I don't think they have. So no spaces. So primary words, that kind of describe it, put typically in capital letters, and then anything that's like an and or whatever will be lowercase, but I'll just do webinar Friday. I can give a brief description of what it's going to be, and that all this information goes into the manifest for the script. So even if you have this change, you have this whatever it is in here, you can change it in here as well later on down the road, or you can change it in the manifest if you need to. but we're just going to create a basic extrusion script, and then I can give, my name, and then I can tell it what operating systems I want it to be for. So I can do either Windows or I can do Windows and Mac. And then it gives the folder location of where it's going to be saved. So I can go ahead and create, and it's going to basically say, is that really what I want the name to be? Yeah, I'll just pick off of it, and then I have my script right there. So then let's go ahead and go in and edit this. And by default, this is how your script's going to come up whenever you first go into edit. So at the top, you'll see author and description. And then this line is one of your more important lines because this is going to import the different libraries that you're going to need to create and have access to a lot of the objects to create sketch entities or extrusions or even the CAM workspace. So you can see I got adsk.core, fusion.cam. I can go into some of my other ones, and I've got OS because I'm trying to get into the actual operating system, and then I've got tkinter in here for file dialog. So in here, the OS, I grabbed it because I'm actually saving files out to folders, and I'm trying to read into folders as well. So depending on what kind of work you're doing depends on some of the imports that you want to have in there. But for the most part, these will work out of the box for what you want to do.
So it's like you have to access the library of the software you're trying to communicate with.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so since we did the script, you'll see I've got the function run here labeled with the DEF, and then context. So basically whatever is going to be in here is what it's going to run. However, I don't have a stop in here. I don't have a definition stop because as soon as I hit OK on the dialog, it automatically kills the script. So to show that as well, you can see in here, since this is an add-in, I've got the stop as well. So that's one of the other differentiators between the script and the add-in. Okay. So right now, what this is going to do, if I go in and run this in Fusion, I'm going to actually get a message box that says "Hello World," which is always kind of funny to see. So let's hit run, and you'll see, or "Hello Script." My bad. So I want to go ahead and take that out because we want to create a sketch and an extrusion. So you can see also in here that it also came in with that app equals the get and then the user interface. So user interface will be used if we actually create like a dialogue that would actually feed more into what we're doing. Where you can do that if you're creating like a, say you want to have like, for example, my soft jaw and stock solid add-in that I created. If you wanted to do something like that, where you can define the height, width, and depth of your soft jaws, stock sizes, and all that stuff, that's where the UI variable is going to come into play more because you're doing stuff with the actual UI. But go ahead.
No, that's awesome, Matt. And what you're saying is that you can manipulate those specific functions right in the UI by running it through the script. I think it's really awesome to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So then once we're in here, let's just go ahead and start getting into creating the variables that are going to get our active product and the design, and then we'll go in and start creating the sketches and stuff. So first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I grab my design. And so this is why I would always use Spider, because code hints are good in here. Period. I have looked at other Python editors, and there's plenty of them out there. I think there's like PyCharm and some other ones, but code hints in here are perfect for what I need, because you can see as I hit app, and then as soon as I hit period to start looking within the app, I get all my different selections for what else I can do inside that application. So in here, what I want to do is I want to actually go to active product. So I can arrow key down and actually hit tab, and that gets my active product. And then I can hit enter on that one. Now, one thing you'll notice, and this is one other thing I really like about Python, is I don't have to worry about my ending syntax all that much. You know, so if you're in JavaScript, you have to put semicolon. And in other languages, there's different, like, basically end of line syntax that you have to put. Python, I don't have to. So once I'm done, I just hit enter. So then that gets my design. That sets my design to the active product. Now, let's say we want to make sure we want to keep notes of how we're doing stuff. So I'm going to create basically blocked lines that the program doesn't read. So in JavaScript, it's the 2 slashes. In here, it's the number sign. So then I can go ahead and give me basically a note of saying I want to get the root component of active design. So that's what I'm going to do next. So next is I'm going to create the variable of root comp. Then I'm going to do design dot, and I'll just start typing root comp. Oh, sorry, root component. Okay, so now I know it's good, and the only reason why this has any kind of like, basically the squiggly line in or this error is basically that it's not been used yet. So you can see since I used design, that little message, error message on the design went away. So as soon as I use root comp in something, that will go away as well. So then let's keep going. Now we're going to basically define the plane that we're going to be sketching on. Now here we're going to define a given plane. You can also have the ability of actually having user input on what plane you want it to be on. Again, that's a different process, and that's creating a selection variable. So there you're going to actually use, you're going to have an actual palette that's going to show up that would have that selection ability. So right now we're creating one that's not going to have that palette come up. It's just going to run on its own and it's going to be done. So I'm going to create a new sketch on XY plane. So I'm going to create the variable of sketches equals root comp okay. Then I'm going to say sketches. Okay, and then next one I want to create the XY plane variable. I'm going to go again, root comp dot XY construction plane. And interestingly enough, that does actually have to be that way. You have to have lowercase x and then uppercase y. And depending on which plane you're doing, it's going to be different. So you could have x and z or y and z, whatever. But that's how that's going to work. All right, so then the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say create the sketch on that plane. So again, I'm going to do sketch equals sketches dot add XY plane. Put some of this together real quick.
So Matt, you're removing some of the spaces between those the function variables. Is there a reason that you're not able to have spaces there?
No, I'm just kind of tightening it all up. So it's user preference and how you program and stuff.
Yeah, it's more concise, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we can go in and we can go ahead and do we'll go ahead and do the circle real quick, and then I'll show like how to do like a 2-point rectangle or whatever. So let's do circles equals sketch dot sketch curves dot sketch circles. We'll do circle 1 as my variable equals circles dot add by center radius. And so then whenever I do the add by center radius, again the first input is going to be create where I want it to have the 0 point be, or the origin of my circle, and then the radius of that circle. Okay.
One of the cool things that you notice as Matt is typing and he's creating the code to create those different sketch entities, if you look on the right where it says Object Inspector, it's showing you that they are actual real objects from the library that you defined up top in import.
Yep.
So it's really cool that it's giving you that feedback that what you're typing in is a real object that you're going to manipulate inside of Fusion.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I like working in Spider, because it does give you all that feedback, whereas you might not get that in some of the other ones. So that's definitely why I like using Spider. Okay, so now that we've got the circle created, I want to go in and I want to go ahead and define the dimensions. So let's just do a little note. Then I'm going to do a sketch. Sketch dimensions. Add diameter dimension. Circle 1. It is k dot core dot 0.3. And then again, this is defining where in space the text of the dimension is going to be. So let's go ahead and save this. And then let's go back into Fusion. And I'm just going to open a new design real quick. Which, if no one noticed, this is one of the new updates from the release, I think, yesterday or the day before. So it's actually really nice to have. Anyway, so script, and then pick our webinar Friday, and I'll hit run. Okay. So whenever we talked about how it does error handling, this is how it does it. So I can see in line 26, there's some kind of error that's causing this. So let's go back over to Spider real quick. So line 26. So in here is where I'm getting this error at. So let's just make sure I actually spelled everything right, which is usually the case. I misspell something. When all else fails, because I know I ran this yesterday, you can always copy and paste stuff in. So one of the other things I will mention on here, Python is very particular about actual the spacing on stuff, or not really spacing, but having it tabbed correctly, I guess you could say.
One thing about programmers and being a programmer, that you're going to build a library of functions and features that you create, and there's tons of libraries out there when you do a search, especially in the API page within our Fusion forums, and you can see that a lot of users will put snippets up there that you can always copy and paste into your project. And that's sort of a lot how we build a lot of our projects, is borrowing a lot of that code that developers have already done. So I would borrow a lot from what Matt did and put it into my project, and I'm able to make and create sketches and extrude parts. So it's really versatile to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oops. Oop. Okay. So then that gives us, basically the circle sketch dimension. But now let's say we wanted to add the actual extrusion to it. So again, I can go into here, and let's, in our root comp right underneath it, I want to create my extrudes variable. Features, extrude features. Oops. And again, we'll look at here in a little bit. I'm going to show you the. Actually, probably in a few minutes. We'll get to this, and I'm going to actually do, instead of doing the circle, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a rectangle. Let's do this. Sketch lines. Okay, and then I'll do Autodesk core dot, oops, point B dot create, and then let's do like 0, 0, and then since I'm doing a 2-point rectangle on this one, I'm going to do ADSK core dot point 3D again dot create. And then this is going to define where in space that second point is going to be. So my 4, 0, 0 is the origin. And then here I'm going to do, let's do like 8, 4, 0. Okay. All right. Cool. So I'm just going to comment that out, comment that out, comment that out, just so we can do this real quick. And then I'll, so once we run this, I'm going to go in and show you how you can get to like some of the programming help as well. So I'll just run this real quick. Yep, and then it didn't work. Figures. Okay, so just real quick, it's kind of some of the basics on getting started. I'm going to actually show you this real quick. If I go to the help right here and go to programming interface, it will come up with this, basically the help for the API and kind of how to learn it. So you can go through here and get a lot of information underneath the programming interface. You can do the user's manual, so there's some basic information through here. So basically kind of some of the stuff that I've talked about today so far. Here's the object model. You can also Google this and get a full screen one.
That's like the menu and list of all the objects that you can manipulate inside of the API to create geometry and manipulate geometry in Fusion.
Yep, absolutely. And then if you go down here to sample programs, here are some different programs that you can kind of look at. Custom event. I can do joints if I want to do that, or just general exporting files, importing anything in modeling. I can do all that through here. So here's like extruding a feature. And the cool thing in here is it gives you both code samples for both Python and C++. Okay. But yeah, if you go through those, there's a lot of information. The other one that is really helpful is this API reference manual. So there's the objects and enumerators. So if you go into the objects, these are all the different objects that you can that you have access to inside of the Fusion API. And then if you go into these, it gives you different information of properties and methods that you can do. So a lot of information in here that can help. Another one, I know we just kind of, oops, that's not what I wanted, programming interface. Welcome to Fusion API. Okay, so, I know we kind of looked at just beginnings and whatnot. If you want to go into it more, there's this, they had a hackathon, like a year or two ago. All this is still relevant information. So you can actually, again, on the home screen of the API interface, welcome, go down to the bottom, and it's got the different links to the videos that Brian Eakins did. And these are all awesome videos. So definitely check them out. And then real quick, I'll show. So if you ever want to create a custom palette, so these are called palettes, you can do that within Fusion. Again, all of it's HTML driven, but you can actually embed web pages into it and browse basically as you would. So another thing in here is if you do any kind of AKN search or Autodesk Knowledge Network, let's say I want to do like adaptive clearing, hit search. I can do all the searching through here as well. And I can go to these links and it all opens up in here. Videos will load, and I can actually watch the videos through here as well.
That's right inside of a Fusion dialog, so you don't even have to leave this workspace to be able to do a search and find out how to do something or find out how to program or even change a part. It's right embedded right inside of Fusion. I think it's just awesome.
Yep. Yeah, and another one that we'll have actually coming up to the App Store before too long. So this one should be hitting the App Store before long, but this one, hope it works for me today. If you're a CAM guy and you want to have backplotting within Fusion, you will be able to do that here soon. So we took Xander's NC viewer and embedded it within a palette inside of Fusion so that you can easily, I can come in and grab an NC file. I'll just show you real quick. I can literally come in, I can pick my NC file, drag and drop it in here, and then I get immediate backplotting within that add-in. So lots of different opportunities here that can be had by using this custom palette.
And that's an awesome viewer too that Xander made, and this also shows you the power of working inside the API, where Xander was able to create this whole backplotter using a lot of the interface within Fusion, but programming in the back end to be able to integrate a lot of that CAD and the CAM program to be able to do a backplot there. So these are just great examples of working with automation and working with the API inside of Fusion.
Yep. Cool.
Very awesome. So Matt, I think we're getting close to the top of the hour. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today to walk through how to program, to take those steps to be able to create geometry, how to add the libraries. to your project and be able to find those code snippets. You gave us some good direction on where to find help, to find out where those the objects and as well as the functions where you can find help on that to be able to write your own programs. It's awesome. Thanks, Matt, for taking that deep dive with us. Guys, we have a few minutes left. If you guys have any questions for Matt, please feel free. Ask them in the questions panel. And for those of you guys who are with us today, we had mentioned earlier that we're going to have a sneak peek, so stick around towards the end of our webinar. We're going to stop recording, so it's only for you guys that are here with us today that you get a sneak peek of what's going on with our post, as well as inside of HSM Works. CJ is going to give us a little bit of a tour on probing inside of HSM Works. So if you do have any questions, we did put up Matt's information. He's definitely on Instagram. Check out his Instagram page. So I'd like to hand it over to Al and CJ so that they can give us some insight of what's up and coming on the roadmap of our developers. And I'm going to stop recording right about now, guys. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. But I'm stop recording, and stay with us, guys, as Al and CJ take us on the tour of what's behind the scenes.